Thomas Calloway had lived a life full of regret for the opportunities missed, the wrongs never righted, and the relationships never mended. He had aged without a purpose, lost in the shadows of his past. But then he died, and when he returned, he carried with him a message from Jesus, a message not just for him, but for an entire community on the brink of despair. This is the story of how one man's redemption changed the lives of many, offering a glimpse of heaven on earth. Thomas Calloway had always lived in the shadows of his past. Born into a hard-working family in the small town of St. Cecilia's, he had been a promising young man once, full of ambition, hope, and dreams. But somewhere along the way, life had become a series of disappointments. He'd become consumed by his own selfish desires, living a life devoid of meaning. Marriage. After marriage had failed, friendships lost in the wake of his inability to truly connect with others. His career, which had once seemed promising, had crumbled under the weight of his indifference and neglect. The thing that gnawed at Thomas the most, however, was the people he had hurt. He had pushed away family, abandoned his children, and lived without purpose. There had been moments when he tried to turn things around, but each time he would falter, falling deeper into the abyss of regret. He couldn't shake the feeling that he had squandered every opportunity God had given him. And then, one fateful night, Thomas Calloway died. He passed quietly in his sleep, a man burdened by the weight of a lifetime's worth of regrets. When Thomas woke up, it wasn't in a hospital room, nor was it in a bed surrounded by loved ones. Instead, he found himself standing in a vast ethereal field of light, surrounded by figures he could not recognize, yet somehow felt profoundly connected to. He wasn't sure how long he had been there, but a sense of peace washed over him. In the distance, Thomas saw a figure approaching, tall, with a calm and powerful presence. As the figure drew closer, Thomas realized it was Jesus. His heart raced, his pulse quickened, and he fell to his knees. "Jesus?" Thomas whispered, though his voice felt distant and faint in the presence of divine power. "Thomas," Jesus said, his voice both gentle and commanding, "you are here for a reason. Your time on earth was not without purpose, but you did not fulfill the purpose I set for you. Yet, I have heard your cries, and I have seen your regret. You are not alone in your sorrow. I will send you back, Thomas, to make things right, to heal what was broken, to serve those in need." Thomas couldn't believe what he was hearing. He had lived a life full of failure and self-doubt. Was he truly being called to make a difference? "Go back, Thomas," Jesus continued, "not for your own redemption, but for the redemption of others. There is a community in need, and you, Thomas, are the vessel through which they will be healed." When Thomas woke again, he was in his old bed, lying in the same house that had once been full of echoes of laughter and life, now silent and empty. His body ached, but it was a different kind of ache, one that spoke not of physical weakness, but of a profound spiritual awakening. He knew that something had changed. He didn't waste any time. He couldn't. There was a task ahead of him, something that would change his life, and perhaps the lives of others. The community Jesus had sent him to was not far. It was a small, decaying town named Grace Hollow, a place that had once thrived but now struggled under the weight of poverty, addiction, and despair. The streets were lined with abandoned houses, and the air carried the unmistakable scent of hopelessness. Drug addiction was rampant, families were torn apart, and the local church, once a beacon of light, stood at the heart of it all, neglected, forgotten. Thomas walked through the streets, his heart heavy with the knowledge that this place was his second chance. But he also knew that this was not just a chance for him to redeem himself, it was a chance to redeem a community that was desperately searching for hope. Thomas approached the church, now in disrepair, its windows cracked and its doors boarded up. Once it had been a place of refuge, a sanctuary. Now it seemed like just another casualty of time. He stood before it, unsure of where to start. But then the words Jesus had spoken to him echoed in his mind, "Serve those in need." He knew what he had to do. Over the next few weeks, Thomas began visiting the people of Grace Hollow. He spent time with the addicts, listening to their stories, their pain. He spoke with the families, offering comfort and support. He helped the elderly, who had been forgotten by their own families. Slowly but surely, he became a presence in the community, a symbol of hope for those who had lost everything. But it wasn't enough. Thomas knew that he needed to do more. He needed to bring them not just physical relief, but spiritual healing. He needed to rebuild the foundation of the community, its faith. One evening, as Thomas sat alone in the church, the lights dimmed around him. He felt an overwhelming sense of peace, and suddenly the figure of Jesus appeared before him once again. "Thomas," Jesus said softly, "you are doing well, but your work is not done. There are many in this town who still suffer. There are those who are lost, those who do not believe. You must show them my love, my forgiveness, and my grace. Only then will this community be healed." Thomas nodded, his heart swelling with both fear and determination. He had felt Jesus' presence so strongly in his life since his return, and he knew that this was his divine mission for him. It was time to share his love with Grace Hollow. If this story is resonating with you, and you believe in the power of transformation, healing, and love, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us continue to share these messages of hope and inspiration with others. If you've had a similar experience or have found strength in your own journey, share your thoughts in the comments below. You might be the beacon of light someone else needs right now. With the church now open and people starting to come back, Thomas realized the work had just begun. He knew that the key to healing the community lay in forgiveness. It wasn't just the addicts or the broken families that needed forgiveness. It was everyone. The whole town had been living in the shadow of their mistakes, their failures, and their grudges. He began preaching about the power of forgiveness, how Jesus had forgiven him, a man who had wasted his life, and how he offered that same forgiveness to all who sought it. Slowly, the message began to sink in. People who had once held on to years of resentment started to open their hearts. Those who had been lost in addiction began to find strength in faith. Families once torn apart by bitterness started to rebuild. Over the months, Thomas watched as Grace Hollow transformed before his eyes. The streets became cleaner. The church was full of people who had once given up hope, now coming to find peace. The addicts, many of whom had been living on the streets, found recovery through faith and support. Families reunited. Children who had once played on broken streets now ran through a community that had rediscovered the joy of living. Thomas had become a leader in this new life, a man who had been given a second chance and was determined to help others do the same. As I reflect on everything that has transpired since my return, I can't help but feel overwhelmed with gratitude. There are moments when it feels like it was all just a dream, the transformation of Grace Hollow, the restoration of the broken people, the divine mission I was entrusted. But when I look at the lives that have been changed, the families that have been healed, and the faith that has been rekindled, I know it was all real. God's hand was guiding me every step of the way. When I first died, I had no idea that my life would be so dramatically altered. I was consumed by regret, bound by the shackles of missed opportunities and selfish choices. I believed, like so many others, that it was too late for someone like me. But Jesus showed me that it's never too late. No matter the weight of our past, no matter the depth of our mistakes, we are never beyond his reach. I was reminded of the verse from Matthew 19:26. With man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. That is the essence of what he showed me. His love and grace are limitless. Returning to the community of Grace Hollow was like stepping into a second chance. I didn't just return from death with a message for others. I returned with a purpose, and though that purpose was clear, it was not easy. The work of healing a broken community is never quick or simple. The damage that addiction, poverty, and neglect leave behind can take years to undo. But every person I met along the way reminded me that it was worth it. Each face I encountered, each story I heard, was a testament to God's power to restore what had been lost. I remember the first family I helped, the McAllisters. They were a young couple with 2 children, both parents battling their own addictions. When I first knocked on their door, they were suspicious and closed off. But something about that day, something about the way I spoke to them, the way I listened without judgment, brought a glimmer of hope into their hearts. They allowed me to guide them through the recovery process, to show them the power of forgiveness, and to help them understand that their worth wasn't defined by their past mistakes. Today, they are one of the strongest families in the town, and the children are growing up with the love and support they never had before. As time passed, I began to see more and more people come back to the church. The pews, once empty and abandoned, were now filled with the voices of those who had lost faith in themselves, faith in their families, and even faith in God. But they found their way back, and they found strength in the love and community we built together. It was a place where people were not judged for their past but embraced for who they were in the present, where brokenness was not a weakness but an opportunity for healing. I remember in particular the transformation of the old church building. At first, the roof was leaking and the walls were stained with years of neglect. But as we worked together, with each donation and every volunteer's help, it became a symbol of the new life that was taking root in Grace Hollow. The church now stood as a beacon of hope, a place where people found not just solace, but a renewed sense of purpose. There were days of doubt, moments where I questioned whether I was truly capable of fulfilling the task set before me. The road was often difficult, and the burden of responsibility weighed heavily on my shoulders. But then I would remember the words Jesus spoke to me, "You are not alone. I am with you always." In those moments, I felt his presence guiding me. lifting me, reminding me that this was His work, not mine. I have come to realize that redemption is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong journey, a journey of constant growth, healing, and service to others. And as I continue walking this path, I see that the work I began in Grace Hollow is far from over. There are still lives to be touched, souls to be saved, and hearts to be healed. But the greatest transformation, I believe, has taken place within myself. I have learned the true meaning of service not as a means to gain recognition or praise, but as a way of expressing love. I have learned that forgiveness is not just for others, but for oneself. I have learned that no matter how far we fall, there is always a way back, through faith, through love, and through the grace of God. Today, I continue to serve, to minister to the people of Grace Hollow, and to share the message that was given to me. And though my physical body will one day fade away, I know that the work I have done, with the guidance of God, will live on in the hearts of those I have touched. I will continue to share His love, to show others the way of salvation, and to remind them that no matter their past, they are never beyond redemption. As I stand here, watching the people of Grace Hollow walk down the path of healing, I feel an overwhelming sense of peace. The community is no longer defined by its struggles, but by its resilience, its faith, and its love. I know that this is what I was sent back to do, to help others discover the power of redemption, to help them understand that, through Jesus, they too can have a second chance. As I near the end of my journey, I am reminded of the words from Philippians 3:13-14. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. These words resonate with me now more than ever. My past, my regrets are no longer my focus. My goal is to press on, to continue the work that was set before me until I reach that prize. I am no longer the man I was. I am no longer bound by my past. I am redeemed, and through Christ, I've been given a second chance, a chance to change the world, one life at a time. If this story has inspired you, touched your heart, or reminded you of the power of redemption, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps spread messages of hope, healing, and transformation to those who need it the most. If you've had a similar experience or want to share your thoughts, leave a comment below. Together, we can help others find their second chance in Christ. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and may God bless you